Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beauty and Being. I am your host, Sarah Callahan, of course. And today I'm joined by my wonderfully amazing friend, Emma Jones. She is like one of my best friends. So I'm excited to have her on. Not to, bring in camp people. I know we'll have more non-camp guests soon as well. I know it feels like a lot of the people that I have brought on are from camp. I know other people, but I just also love all my camp friends. So yeah, I met Emma my first summer at camp. That was both of our first summers. We call it the COVID summer because we were about half staff and at our wits' end, but we had a really good time through all the stress and all the chaos that happened during COVID summer. And from that, with all of our friends from COVID summer, we formed a really tight bond, and we're both really close with that whole group. And yeah, before COVID, Emma's a native to the island that we worked on, Mount Desert Island, and she's lived up in Maine her entire life and has a really different perspective on those things than I do because I've lived down south all my life. So, anyways, I just wanted to introduce her a little bit. And hi, Emma, how are you today?
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
I'm happy you're
Uh,
here too. Also, for the listeners, Emma and I have been on this call for about an hour and a half now before we got
yeah,
the chance to record. So it's taken us
I
an hour
know.
and a half to record.
Technical issues.
Yeah. Also
It's okay.
just give gabbing, but yeah, a lot of it was on my
Yeah.
part. But I know also it took me a while to record or post the last episode, but computer's back open, back operating. We figured it out.
Yay.
So, Emma, can you tell the listeners a little about your story and, any sort of parts of it from birth to now that you feel like you want to care to share with our audience?
Yeah. So like Sarah said, I'm a Maine native. I've been here my entire life. I was born and raised on Mount Desert Island, which is where Acadia National Park is located. I went to the one of the local elementary schools, and I was there from kindergarten till seventh grade. Um, when Towards the end of my seventh grade year, my mom actually got laid off from her job, and so we ended up having to move. And so I started my eighth grade year at a school in Augusta, and that's where I went for high school too. Um, I Then, when I applied to go to college, I went to college back down east, and that's just this region of Maine that we call like Acadia and then northeast of the state of Maine. And so I don't know why it's called down east, but that's just what it is. Um, and so I went to college in Machias, and the summer 2021 is when I applied to work back at Camp Beach, or applied to work at Camp Beach Cliff, and I found my way back to MDI, and I now live here with my other bestie and roommate, Molly, and we've been here for 3 years now. Uh, we work for the local school system, a local school district. We're both Ed Tech threes, so that means that we can do a lot more with our kiddos and whatever. But we do that during the school year, and then we work at camp in the summertime. So we do a lot of like youth development and just working with kids in general. But um, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
When you say do a lot more with the kids, what do you mean?
So when during the school year or during the school day, an Ed Tech 3 is allowed to provide specialized direct instruction. So if there's a student that has an IEP, which is a individualized education plan, if they're qualified for special ed, basically, a student needs to receive SDI if it's in their IEP, and EdTech 3s can provide the SDI. So I provide literacy, I provide math, support. I do in-class support. So I get to be more hands-on with the kids instead of just kind of being another adult in the room. I can do pull out, which is just I can pull a student out of the room with permission from the classroom teacher and um, have those minutes like made and uh, can be targeted goals that we work on for the kiddos that I work with. So that's more of a hands-on role.
Do you like being more hands-on or do you like being more of like an instructor?
Um, so this is actually something that I've kind of been like noodling with for the last couple weeks, about like just where I want my career to go and where I want like what I want to ultimately end up doing at school. Um, and right now I'm kind of leaning towards wanting to be more of an instructor. I'm actually trying to work on getting like an emergency certification to teach health for our middle school kids because that's the primary grade level that I work with. Um, just because I feel like I love my job. I love my job a lot. And I think it's one of the best things I've ever really done for myself. But I've just been having a lot of feeling like I don't have a lot of autonomy. And I kind of knew that going into being an ed tech, but I'm wanting to take on more of a um, more control over my schedule. So, but I still love doing SDI. I have built such a relationship with the kids that I work with on a regular basis. And I have been told multiple times by the kids and the parents and the other people, like my supervisor, who's our special ed teacher, that like I provide such an important role for the kids that I work with, and I am totally fine doing that. I love them so much. Um, but I don't know, I'm feeling more like I want to start doing something a little different, and so we'll see how that goes. But I do really love working at school. Um, uh, and I love working with kids in general. So it kind of it makes it easy to go to work, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
If you have something that you like to do, it makes it easier to
Yeah, it
do it.
does. It's nice to kind of wake up and feel like you have a purpose. I bring this up because I can't remember. This was something that Matt and I we had this discussion the other week because I bought a book about Ikigai, and I don't know if you
Mm.
were a part of that with the ACA conference last year, or if this was something that Matt and I did separately. And I think it might have been at,
It sounds vaguely familiar to
okay.
me,
Then it might
but
have also been something that we talked about just like with S team training and stuff.
mhm.
But I'll forward it the premise of it to you if you'd like. But there's this notion of Ikigai, which is a Japanese philosophy, and it's about like a higher purpose and
Mm.
finding that. And
Oh, yes, I do remember
yeah,
this.
where it's like your
You.
vocation, your passion, like can you does it help your community? Is it something you're good at? Can you
Mm.
make money off of it? And then there's a fourth thing, and all of these four things come together. And when it's something that you're passionate about, you can make money off of, you're good at it. I think that's what it is. It's the passion, good at it, make money off of it, helps your community. When all four things, when all those four things come together, it's considered your
Mhm.
ikigai, and you're able to kind of it makes getting out of bed easier and going to work easier because you feel like you're fulfilling something, even if sometimes it's hard. You're working towards something else. So whether that's yours or not, I it's always nice when you have a job or a passion that just makes getting out of bed easier and like getting excited for your day. So
Yeah. No, I definitely feel that way most of the time about like working at school. And I definitely feel that way most of the time, if not all the time, about working at camp for
mm,
sure. Um, so yeah, it does make it
yeah.
easier. I'm realizing that there's one thing that I want to mention before we continue. So the term ed tech is pretty specific to the state of Maine.
Mm,
A lot of people might have referred or have it be referred to as a
mm-hmm,
paraprofessional. So I just want to clear that up for those that might be listening outside the state of Maine.
mm-hmm.
Just so we can,
Yes.
They know what I'm talking about.
I think it was referred to as ed tech in Florida as well, but I might be wrong. That might just be because that's what it is in my brain because I have a lot of friends that are ed techs. So like
Yep.
because I know what you do and I know what your job is. And so when I was a teacher and I had there was people around me that were doing your job, I was like, oh, this is anyways. There was two things just to kind of like circle back on because I know you mentioned the first thing was that there are some days that it like most of the days it's easy to get up, but there are some days where it's hard. Where that was something
Mm-hmm.
that this book that I'm reading talked about, where it's like people that have found that or are close to that, they wouldn't refer to their work as easy. They wouldn't refer to their passion as easy. They just refer to it as fulfilling, which I thought was
Mm-hmm.
interesting because you would think that like your
Mm-hmm.
dream job would be something that would come easy to you and naturally to you, but like for a lot of people to have like that bigger purpose, like it takes sacrifice, it takes like effort, but it is like rewarding towards the end,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know, I found interesting.
No,
Um,
I totally agree with that actually.
yeah, I feel like the things that are easier, like when you hit that end goal or when you hit that kind of finish line, it doesn't feel as like I don't know, not necessarily
Yeah.
accomplished, but
Yeah.
anywho.
Yeah.
I want to also circle back on something you said. You said that becoming an ed tech or working in the schools or working with kids in general was the best thing that you have done for yourself, which I thought was
Mm-hmm.
interesting because you're serving children, you're serving kids, you're serving youth. I'm wondering why, like, how that comes full circle back for you, and how like helping others is like maybe helpful to you, or just if you can unpack that. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So I have always kind of felt like I was going to be in some kind of like role where I served others. And I mean that not as like I mean that in I'm serving others because it also makes me feel good kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always known that that's probably where I was going to end up. My original degree program is psychology and community studies, so that's obviously providing a service for a community, being a counselor. I then also, when I was in school, like when I was in high school, I was also thinking about going to culinary school, and so like that's another way that you can serve others is providing like food, like fuel for people and nutrition, like providing good food for people to eat. So like I've always found myself drawn towards a role that is of service to others. And so when I started working at a camp position, I was 19 or I was 18 actually. I was 18 and I was working at this pretty small camp in Augusta and I just found myself really enjoying it because I have always fallen into more of a nurturing role for other people. Like I'm an older sister. I have a younger brother. We are 6 years apart, and so like I kind of and not in like a super unhealthy way, but in a way that it just kind of how it happened. Like because he was so much younger than me, like there was a lot of times where I would have to, you know, watch him if my parents were out for a little bit, or kind of take on more of a supervisory role with my brother at a younger age, right? So I've always kind of had more of a nurturing role, kind of, and I've always felt comfortable in a nurturing role. Like I've never kind of had an issue with it. So when I started working at this job, I was like, oh, I get to work with kids who are from an inner city, right? Like Augusta, it's the capital of Maine, and you get a lot of kids and a lot of different like ethnic or, socioeconomic backgrounds. And so there's a lot of difference between the kids that you see and serve. And so that was kind of the first taste that I got of working with kids in a large group capacity. And so then I did it again the next summer. And that summer was COVID. 2020, 2020. That summer was COVID, and that was really hard, but I knew it was important that we were still working and still doing what we were doing at that camp, because otherwise these kids would have absolutely no socialization, and they would be like not getting food. Pretty much is like part of the camp that I worked at, we provided lunch for every single camper that wanted it, that signed up for it. And so like I knew that yes, this is really hard, and it's, we have to make sure that we're staying in, kind of we're staying in our own little groups, and we're making sure that we're wearing masks when we need to and all that kind of stuff. But like if we weren't doing this service, we would be be doing a disservice to the kids that we would normally have. So I've always I'm trying to remember where I'm going with this, but um like so after that like summer, I just was like I want to be doing more, and I want to be, you know, providing. I want I feel like a lot of the skills that I have, and a lot of the way that I just interact with a lot of the kids that I do, I can make it easier for them to relate to an adult. I've been told a lot of the time that I'm a safe adult for a lot of kids, and I'm like, Summer, you're my favorite teacher, like da da da, and like there is a little bit of me. I mean, as I feel like kind of it's a normal human like that. It's a little self-serving. It's a little selfish because it's like, oh well, that feels great, but it's also like that also is very important to me that the kids that I work with feel safe and comfortable with me to talk to me about stuff, because I had safe adults when I was a kid, and that made me realize the importance of having safe adults. And so being the safe adult for a group of a pretty large chunk of children that I know and have worked with helps me feel like I have a purpose, and helps me feel like maybe this is why I'm here. Um, and so that's just kind of why I continue doing what I do. And I really, yes, there are hard days, but it always comes back to the notion of, well, you are here because you are providing some kind of safety for a group of kids. So,
So how do you foster that sense of safety for the kids? Like is it sort of your, demeanor? Is it how you talk with them? Is there anything, because I know we both have our tactics, and while we start at the same place, like we might have different tactics, and I'm always really curious about how you foster that with your kids.
yeah, I think that a lot of the time, well, and most of the time actually, like the way that I present myself at school is just like I'm one of the youngest people that works at school, right? I'm 24. And so like a large chunk of like the other teachers that I'm working with, or the other, like my coworkers are, like mid 30s to like 60s, right? So they've been teaching and they've been doing all this stuff for a long time, and they know they have their own skill set, and that's great. But my skill set lies with I am real with my kids. And it's like there's a and I'm going to preface by saying there's a line of being real, and then there's also like crossing boundaries, right? And so like that's something that I've definitely had to navigate, but I've found the perfect line. And they still want to cross boundaries. They still want to push. They still want my social media, and they still want da 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 da
Mm-hmm.
da whatever. But like I'm just really like open and honest with them about a lot of stuff. Like uh hey, like sometimes if I when I get my kids that I do SDI with, I start with like, hey, I gotta be honest, like I'm not feeling great today, and so if I'm a little off, like I just want you to know that it's not about you. It's like it's just this is where I am, but I'm working on like making sure that it doesn't impact. I'm also just like I don't know, I understand them, to a certain degree better than some of the other people that I work with because I have been on the internet for, a good chunk of my life, and so I can understand what they're talking about when they reference certain things. And I think that also helps to foster like a deeper connection between them because they're like, oh my God, she gets it. She gets the internet meme, like, you know,
Mhm.
like chronically online rot of the brain. But like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the time, especially the kids that I work with constantly, like every single day. And what I'm talking is sixth grade. I work with sixth grade primarily. Like that's the grade that I'm in and doing in class support with all the time, and da, da, da. And so like I'm just open and like I'm open to having them ask me questions about myself. Like they're exploring the world. Questions are great. And if there's a question that I'm not willing to answer, like I'll say, I'm not going to answer that. Like I don't feel comfortable. And they're like, okay, like they'll just move on. And so like
Yeah.
I don't know. And I also because my degree, like the degree that I've been working on is in psychology, like part of that is that I did have to take like a class, multiple classes about how to approach people with trauma and how to like, talk to them and get them to, feel comfortable with you. And so like unfortunately, there are so many kids that I work with that have ACEs. And if for people that don't know, ACEs are adverse child experiences. And though ACEs can severely impact the likelihood of an adult being diagnosed with PTSD, um, and even a child being diagnosed with PTSD, right? And so there are kids that I work with that have had experienced trauma, whether it's little t trauma or big T trauma. Um, and again, like for those that are listening and maybe don't know what I'm talking about, little t trauma is like little things, but they're still impactful. They're still impactful to somebody. Like, maybe like you have an older sibling and they're just like either older sibling, but they still do things that are like not great to you, but they're not like super, super horribly abusive, right? Big T trauma, it would be like a parent dying when you were a child or experiencing sexual abuse or anything like that. Like that's big T trauma. And so um, knowing how to kind of navigate those conversations or knowing how to navigate like interacting with kids that like that have some kind of trauma background has also been like really helpful. And I think it makes it easier to get to a conversation where, yes, this is hard to have a conversation with, a 12-year-old about like what's happening at home, but also like it's ultimately going to affect your relationship and be like a connecting factor and make sure that that child feels safe with you kind of thing. Um, and so that's just that's kind of that's kind of how I approach like working with kids in general, like either at camp or at school. So um, that's just kind of how I roll.
Thanks for sharing because I think it's really interesting because people have different ways that they promote that safety and also kids connect to different people based on how they go about
Yeah.
promoting it. And what I mean by that is like you say that like the reason why kids are able to feel safe for you is because like you're real and you're honest and you treat yourself as a human. There's no sort of barrier to that. And you're very like meeting them on their level. Or I also know that some kids feel safer with like more individuals that are like more softer spoken and like a little bit, you know, the boundaries are there, but they're going to be a little help. Like I'm trying to think of the teacher from Matilda.
Mm,
I can't remember her name.
mm,
Miss
mm-hmm.
Honey, like a Miss Honey like type. or maybe it's the ones that are, super, you know, excitable and interactive. And I don't know, there's just different ways that people do it, and different kids interact with different things.
Yeah.
Like I think the best actually, this is a better example, but like my first summer, I was a young female um counselor and in the STEM program, and the person I was paired with was an older man, and he was, taller. He was just a person that if somebody was looking for a positive, structured father figure or male figure in any sort of sense, like if that was the safety, that was
Mm-hmm.
Marcus. But if it was, a sort of nurturing, younger, like female, maternal figure, whatever it may be, like that was that
Yeah.
person. And there was definitely campers that like gravitated towards Marcus, and there's campers that gravitated towards me. And so it's just interesting the different ways that people kind of nurture that, foster that, and also what kids are drawn to. But honesty is always the biggest thing, and being able to let them, open up, and share their experiences when those need to be, I think is the
Yeah.
biggest thing. But yeah, I was just curious. I think it's
I want
interesting.
to piggyback off of what you just said real quick because I think it's important.
Mm.
Um, so like, and so saying all that stuff about like how I foster my relationships with my kids. Um, I know that I'm not going to be the person for every single kid that I come across.
Mm.
I know that for
Mm.
sure. And this is when I'm gonna get on my little soapbox for just a little second, and I'm gonna talk about how it is important for any kind of program or school or whatever to have a wide variety of people or safe adults for kids to approach, especially if that safe adult can be a male figure. And I firmly believe that, we need more positive male role models in youth spaces. We need them at camp. We need them at school. Um, I'm trying to encourage the younger men that I know, like younger meaning my age, but like younger men that I know to walk into that space. And you can be nervous and you can be, you can have trepidation about like being in a space like that because, there's always going to be a, that overhanging of like, is this guy actually really safe for the kids? Like, yes, we know, but I encourage younger men to walk into those spaces and be a part of that for the kids because we need that. Like, we
Mm.
need positive male role models and we need to start at a younger level about like, that's how we start dismantling a lot of our patriarchal values, right? Like,
Mm.
uh, so I don't know. That's just me stepping on my soapbox for a second.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a soapbox. I think it's an important thing to think about. And especially like as we talk about positive male figures that look different and express themselves differently as
Yeah.
well. Just because I know that it is easier for, female presenting people to express themselves in a more dynamic way than it is for people that are male
Hmm.
presenting. Just the way that society is. I understand that. But even with all those caveats, I think it's really important, because especially young boys growing up, they need that positive role model
Absolutely.
to kind of build themselves off of.
Absolutely.
And I know that, like, when I think back to like my summer with Marcus, he was not strict, but he had very, very clear
Hmm.
defined boundaries. He had very clear defined boundaries, and some children did not react. And it was also at a time when it was during COVID
Yeah.
too, and so the boundaries were even more expressed than what they were normally at
Hmm.
camp. And so like you have this like, okay, it's COVID time, and we have to stay 6 feet apart all outside, as well as we have a counselor who is very like firm on his boundaries, but that is also important, and it was important that we kept to those. Um, This is all to say that some campers did not react well to having those boundaries. But sometimes kids just don't react well to boundaries in
Mhm.
general. They're kids and they want to know where they are. And you and I know that we've talked about that on this podcast before. This is all to say that 2022, so the next summer, I was now working in the camp with our friend Savannah,
Haha, sadly.
and there was a there was a group of kids talking, and they were kind of asking me, oh, like, Sarah, where's that man that was here last year? And I was like, oh, he's doing something else because he couldn't come back. We were planning on him coming back. And a couple of them were like, oh, like, I don't we didn't really, we didn't really, like, I don't know, they weren't saying stuff negative, but they were just like, we didn't kind of vibe with him. But there was one camper that was very much like, I loved him. I loved him. He was like, I don't think you all understand him. He was great. Like, I miss
Yep.
him. Like, was very much very, and I'll text you who this camper was
Hmm.
because you and I both, we both, he's a really great
Hmm.
kid. And he was also the kid that understood what Marcus was
Hmm.
doing, and he was a very smart child. I remember him. Um, but he was also the one that looked up to him, and like, he's the type of person that needed this adult in
Yeah.
his life. And so it is really important. And, I encourage, if anybody has that kind of inclination to do work with kids, you know, do
Yeah.
it. Like, it's important. People, like, kids need different
Yeah.
role models to kind of bounce off of. And you're not going to be everybody's favorite. I'm not everybody's favorite. You're not everybody's favorite, but it is what it
Yeah.
is. And just to help those individuals and be that person for those
Yeah.
individuals. So yeah.
The last thing I'll say about like this particular conversation or like topic of whatever is I just wanna give a shout out to Liam, who is a lovely human being.
Mm-hmm.
And Liam, if you're listening, love you very much. Very excited to work with you again this summer. But Liam, I'm just gonna put him on blast for a little bit. You would typically describe him as like a frat boy, right? And he has defined himself as kind of like a frat dude, whatever, a little bit. He's a college kid, whatever. However, he is amazing um with our pre or like our kindergarten slash first grade like pre-K like da 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 kids, and it's just awesome to see because it's like this is this dude who has like these piercings and tattoos, and he's he's kind of broy just a little bit, like not too bad, but he does awesome with like are the youngest campers that we have, and so like I love the subverting expectations of Liam. And so that's why I'm like, we need more people that are like, of that kind of demographic of to come and work and be with kids because they actually like really are receptive to it. So anyway, I just wanted to shout out Liam. Hi Liam.
I want to back up for a second and talk about the camp that we worked at together for a little bit. I feel like I know the story of like what brought you to camp that summer, because I also, just to kind of sidetrack for a second, that summer was a weird summer because CBC, our old camp, was open in 2019, was closed in 2020, but had some staff hired, so a lot of that staff was carried
Yep.
over into 2021. Some of the staff that was hired for 2020 did not come back in 2021, but because also, like, we were still in the throes of COVID, and like restrictions were still being put in place, and like even like ACA camps didn't know if they were going to run like that March or February, like pretty close to the start of
Yep.
camp. We had like a teeny tiny little small staff, and it was just like kind of amazing that like camp was even able to
Hmm.
run that summer. It was a We might unpack that later, but that was a fun one. But we made it work. Everything happened. But because it was like this weird sort of summer, like we had a kind of a interesting mix of people that like had gone to camp and were now staff members, and then an interesting mix of people that had never been to this camp before at all, had never seen it before, but were also coming in to be staff members. So I was just curious about like kind of what brought you to CBC in
Yeah.
2021.
Um, So, like I said previously, I had been working at another camp in Augusta for 2 years. The summer before COVID, the summer of 2020, and then so yes, so 2 years. And this camp is not like CVC at all. It's a very much it's in an old school building in Augusta, and there's a playground and there's a field, and that's it. Like that was the facility that we could work with, and the rooms that we were in were classrooms. Like they were just converted to be like we were on like one wing of this building, and then the other wings were like used for like other like recreational things. So like people would be coming in and out like doing like karate or like all this kind of, so it was just very strange. It was very weird. But um so the summer of COVID, I was still living at home with my parents, and as we were as we were approaching the end of 2020, I was like having this kind of internal battle of I really love my family. I really like being able to live here for free. But I don't want to be in the like I feel ready to move out of my parents' house. And so I like sat down on the couch one day and I started like trying to apply for jobs that would have me not be at home, pretty much. And my mom was like, "You really love working at camp and you went to Camp Beechcliff as a kid. Why don't you apply to Camp Beechcliff?" And I was like, "Oh my God, mother, you're so right." Which, by the way, my mom is right about a lot of stuff, so I'm not surprised. My mom is one of the best human beings I know. And if she listens to this, hi mom, I love you. But so I did end up sending out an application, and a couple days later, like literally like maybe 36 hours later, I got a message on through my email from our camp director Matt, who I'll get into him a little bit later. But um and so we set up a meeting, and he was like, "You were the one of the first people to apply for summer 2021." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yes." And so we sat down and had a whole conversation, and I like mentioned to him again, like, "Hey, like I'm a camper. I'm a former camper." Um, and he was like, "Oh, really? Like I don't know a whole lot of former campers that went from camp from this time period to this time period." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Like that's awesome." So we chatted about that for a little bit. And I really just dug Matt's energy and the way that he like approached our interview. And so um we I got my contract, I came, and then in April of 2021, Matt ends up sending me an email being like, "Hey, would you like to work vacation camp for April vacation?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I could make that work." And so, mind you,
I just want to, I don't
no,
want to
you're
interrupt,
fine.
but I just like, because we know Matt really well
Yeah,
now, but like, obviously you didn't know Matt well then.
no,
And so I know what kind of headspace he
yeah.
was in sending like that email, as well as you, the first person to apply for 2021. He was just so excited because I know that meant like, okay, camp's happening
Mm-hmm.
again. Like, and people want to be here. Thank goodness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, love you, Matt. I know
Love
you're
you, Matt.
listening.
Um,
It's just, it's funny to look back on
no,
those
it's
things.
hilarious. It's really interesting. And I actually had just like a tangent real quick. I had a thought about like, what if I had never applied to camp and what would that mean for my life? And anyway, we can talk about that a little bit later, maybe. But no, so Matt was like, "Do you want to come work April vacation camp for camp?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Mind you, I'm still in college. I'm still taking classes. But I was like, you know what? Can I swear?
I'm gonna say
Okay,
PG-13.
I'm gonna say whatever, man. Let's just do it.
Screw it.
Yeah, screw it. Let's send it. And so he put me up in this house, the Hartford house, which
Rock
rock
on,
on
Hartford.
Hartford.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Rest in
There's
pieces.
another aside. There's a whole bunch of signage on the house right now that's like "Do not enter." Um,
Oh,
yeah,
really? They haven't
they
torn it down
haven't torn
yet?
it down yet. but it's like
God.
no trespassing condemned.
You will get
Yeah,
asbestos.
yeah. Um, anyway, so he put me up in the Hartford house for the week, and I had a great time. And like that was the first time I met Matt in person, and I was like, okay, cool. So this is what I can expect for summer. No, actually. Vacation camps run a lot differently than summer camp does. So I was like, cool, vacation camp is super chill and it's gonna be a lot of fun. Like this was a lot of fun and like yeah. And then we get to summer and I had no idea the amount of um I don't know, like physical exertion that I'd have. But I'm still here and I'm still doing it, and this is going to be my fifth
Yeah.
year at camp. So like obviously there's something magical about it. No, but so that's how I found my way back to camp. Is like um I was a camper from 20 2008 to 2000 yeah, 2011 maybe. And so the fun fact about Camp Beach Cliff is that a couple years or about 10 years ago at this point, um, camp underwent a whole renovation. And so it was one of the kids that went to old camp. So we refer to old camp and new camp. New camp is what we have now. It's a wonderful facility, much better than the camp that we had previously, but still, it was functional. We had buildings that were like falling apart and like whatever, but that's the spirit of camp sometimes, it's just like you gotta take what you get, and sometimes you get a building that has like termite rot in it, and that's fine. You just need to know where to step. Yeah, so that's the
Mhm.
long of how I got back to camp, and I still do it. And part of the reason is Matt. Part of the reason is I like what I do there. Part of the reason is like I don't know what else I do during the summertime. 'Cause where we live, or where I live, and Sarah lives in the summer, is um it is a huge tourist destination, very big tourist destination. And so we get an influx of upwards of like 12 million people a summer, pretty much. And so like there's other opportunity to work at like one of the restaurants downtown or work on one of the boats and da da da. But that's just not as fulfilling for me, I think.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, where like you don't know what would have happened if you didn't start working at CBC. And I also feel that way too. Like, what would my life would look like? Because I feel like that was like
mm,
for me, like such a pivotal point in my life was choosing to go up to MDI.
yeah.
Like I would not be in the career I am if I had chosen differently. And it was very much of a spur of the moment kind of whim application for me,
hmm
but I felt like it was
hmm
necessary. But can you think like if that or like something else, like what are some of the defining moments in your life that changed your like perspective or path on like your life's trajectory and things?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think of like right off the top, as like a defining moment for me, it kind of goes back to like high school. When I was in high school, my senior year, I took a class, and you'll see where I'm going with this. I took a class that was called psychology, and the teacher that I took it with was awesome. Love her, Miss Tripp. Love you so much. And I did really well in that class because I don't, I think the way learning about how the way the human brain works is absolutely endlessly fascinating to me. And so I did really well in that class. And, it's getting time to sign up or like apply for colleges and apply for majors and all that kind of stuff. And she was like, Emma, I think that you need to apply to college to do a psychology program because you are endlessly asking questions in class, like to the point where like other kids were not getting the opportunity to. And she was like, yes, you for sure need to do some other kind of education about this. And so I did apply and I went to UMM, and at UMM I met the four no, sorry. Five, God, China, Gary, Savannah, Molly. Five most wonderful people I've ever met in my entire life. Um, and we're still friends today. And, you know, so I think about like what would have happened if I didn't go to UMM. And so that's like one of the things is that, if I didn't go to UMM, I wouldn't be living with my best friend. And I wouldn't be, friends with Gary and Savannah and Chloe and China. And so that's definitely a defining moment for me in my life. I think another defining moment is the moment that I did decide to apply for CBC, um, and come come and work. And I think because if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have, met you. I wouldn't have met Henry. I wouldn't have met Trout. I wouldn't have met Matt. And if I didn't keep coming back, I wouldn't have met like this like huge cache of people that I am so fortunate to have met and have in my life. And if I talk about it too much, I'll start crying. But I just think that like that is another defining moment. Um, I think, yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of the time when I think about that, it does come back to like that one decision in high school to apply for a psychology program and apply for UMM specifically because like the reason why I ended up going to CBC is because it was closer, right? Like it was closer to me, where I was living in college than it was where I was living at home. It's also where I grew up, and so it made sense to come back to CBC. But also, like, Molly ended up wanting to come work with me at CBC. So if I had met Molly, like, would I have come to work? Like, all this kind of stuff. And so I think I think that was a really important a really important moment. Um, and so I think back on it sometimes. I'm like, what if I did end up going to college for teaching, or what if I did end up going to college for culinary school, or like all this kind of stuff. And so yeah, but
I don't know if you feel this way because I definitely feel this way about some things in my life where I feel like there's some decisions that I make that feel so pivotal in the moment, but that end up being so minuscule. And the things that like I didn't like a decision that I made that I didn't really think two or three times more about after I made it ended up like branching off into like an explosion of like, wow, this is my life
yeah,
now. Like, and I think and I didn't realize it till you were talking about it where it was just like something small of like applying to CBC or like choosing your college is a big thing. But like, I feel like when I look back on like, but for me, like when I chose, like it feels smaller now that we're older. But it
yeah,
ended up impacting in so many ways. Like for me, I think of like when I like chose to start working at the bar that I worked at for 4 years. Because it's just like it was just a job. Like I just needed a job, but it ended up transforming my life in so many different ways and meeting so many people that I like now value in my life. And so it's just interesting that like
mhm,
the things we put focus on and weight on, for me at least, ended up not being super important, but the things that like I didn't even think about like kind of exploded for me. I don't know. Does that make sense?
yeah. No, I definitely feel that way. And I'm not, now that you're like talking about it, I also kind of feel that way about applying and working for school too, because like I kind of did that on a little bit of a whim and on Matt's suggestion about like, you guys want to stay and work on the island, why don't you try working in the school system? And I was like, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's like a full-time job and I can get paid and make a regular salary or regular money or whatever. But I don't know, maybe this is just like a one-off thing and I won't do this forever. Hey, this is where we are. I've worked there for 3 years and I actually like enjoy it immensely, and I've learned so much about myself and learned so much about like working with kids and also just life in general. And um so yeah, I mean that was just kind of like I need a job and I need to work
Mm-hmm.
somewhere, so let's just work at a school
Yeah.
system because they're always hiring.
I think
So
it's yeah, it's really interesting. And I think the biggest takeaway is for me in all of this, and I wasn't expecting to kind of get here, but like if you ever to remind myself if I'm ever in a situation where it feels like, okay, this decision is going to make or break it for me. No, it's not. The make or break
Yeah,
decisions have not happened because I've been so stressed about making a decision. They have happened because they've been on a whim. I chose to hike the AT after a like 2 hour hike with Chelsea one day. Like something
yeah,
so small, but it like just, yeah. So don't think too hard. Don't think too long. Just act and it'll
yeah.
work out. Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes back to and while we're talking about this like specific thing, it makes me think of that poem. And I think we both like it.
I posted it on my
It's
Instagram story today, actually. Yeah,
Did
the bell
you?
jar.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yes, the bell jar. Well, the fig
Yeah.
tree, which is a Sylvia Plath
Yeah.
poem. If you don't know what we're talking about, highly recommend you go look at it. Especially, I mean, I resonate with it immensely as a woman. Um, I think that she is a woman. She wrote poetry about the, female, life and whatever. But when you think about that poem and think about like, and I'm looking at this fig tree and like there's all these branches and then there's just the one, like they're all starting to rot because I'm not making a decision. And so I think about that a lot of if I just don't make a decision, the figs are going to rot and fall off the tree. But if I do make a decision, I can choose like one of these branches to go on. And so I don't know. I think that's a interesting thing to keep that I'm trying to consistently think of because I get decision paralysis and I get, overwhelmed with making decisions and all that kind of stuff, especially about big things. But I also don't want life to just kind of like pass me by because I'm not making decisions. So taking a leap, being afraid is okay. Like that's what I did when I applied to camp. I was like, I don't know how this is going to end up. I don't know if I'm going to like it. Like I'm not going to be living with my parents for a full calendar year. That's crazy and I've never done that before. And it ended up being like awesome and amazing and one of the best decisions I've ever made. So,
I'm so happy we got here because I was because yeah, I posted it to my story about 30 minutes before we called each other because it just came up
really?
again and it comes up for me about a
That's so
month. And I
funny.
anybody that knows me, I will talk about this poem all day, every day. It's my favorite one.
Such a good
It's such a
poem.
good one. And I find myself circling back to it, especially right now, like because like after leaving camp and like do I hike the AT? Do I like get focused on my career? I truly felt like that for months and months, but just like it's important to act. Like don't let the decision
Yeah.
paralysis scare you. Don't let that fear eat you away. Like you only have like this one life that you're living right now. um but just take it, do what you can, and just chase your happiness, whatever it may be. Like at the end of the day, that's all I've kind of done is making sure that I'm chasing some sort of happiness, because at the end of the day, like that's all I want, and
Yeah.
that's all I feel like
To
I need. But
kind of go off of that a little bit. So I'm totally okay talking about this, and if you want to cut it too,
yeah,
that's fine.
go for it.
I'm not okay. But so I have I have mental illness. But like a lot of people, especially around when COVID happened, like I went into a severe depression and I also like regained the anxiety that I thought I lost as a kid. And so I went through very at the time we didn't know what was going on. Like I had no idea what was happening, but now that we know and I've talked to doctors and kind of figured it out, I was in a very severe mental state where I was dissociating for weeks, for days, weeks at a time. And so one of the things that kind of brought me out of it was just finding something in the everyday or just doing something to push myself to find joy. And I would call my mom constantly and she's like, Emma, what are you doing today to find like, what are you doing to find your joy today? And I live with that sentiment daily. I I carry that with me all the time. And whenever I think about it, I think about my mother's voice in my head saying, "Are you finding your joy today? Are you finding something about today or something about yourself, something about um, a friend or a situation or just some humor in the daily because it can be very life can be a lot sometimes. And so like making sure that you find something in every single day to make it worth having a day for, you
Mhm.
know? Um, and like that was very impactful to me coming from my mom specifically because my mom, again, mom, if you're listening, I love you, but I'm about to put you on blast for a second. My mom has, dealt with depression her entire life, and I've seen it impact her as a kid and and now as an adult, and how that has impacted her. And so her, finding her way through that, you know, it's awful. It's not fun. Like mental illness sucks, and but like having her find her way through that and then being a support person for me and telling me like we're going to hold hands together and we're going to find our joy because what else is there to do? you
Yeah.
know like part of being human is embracing both bad and good. And so if you can find more good in in the daily, then it
Mhm.
helps, kind of thing.
I so a couple of things. First off, you are such a silly goose if you think I would cut that. You prefaced it by saying like, "Oh, you could cut the hell no." I love that. Are you kidding me? That's what this is all about.
Okay.
Um, because first off, thank you for being vulnerable. I know how hard that can be and how difficult it is, and I know I don't know what you personally went through, but I remember us talking about it, and it's a difficult thing. But I think that is such an important. I don't want to say it like lesson, like you got to learn your lessons, but it's not something important to like internalize of like finding that happiness because it's something that you
Mhm.
do kind of have to learn. Because like when you're a kid, like yeah, like you have your ups and your downs. Not everything's great, but I feel like it was so much easier to find that happiness because it came so naturally, and there wasn't as much stress
Yes.
in your life
Yeah.
for most kids
Agreed.
and things like that. But as we become adults, there's all these distractions and all these things kind of like not there to drag us down, but there are things that drag us down. There are so many other stressors, financial stressors, academic stressors, things like that, that make it really hard to give yourself the space to actively seek that out. I mean, that is something
Hmm.
that I feel like I have learned and then lost and had to relearn again, throughout my life. Like,
Yeah.
and it's really easy to forget that. And I'm glad that your mom's there and you're there for your mom to kind of be like, have you found your happiness today? And things like that. And that's why I love the reflection exercises we do at camp too, because it kind of forces us to
Mm-hmm.
look for it in our past, also retroactively. Like actively seek it out, but also remember to like look back with gratitude on those moments that
Hmm.
you've had.
Yeah.
I also like as we talk about the human experience and like it being the good things and the bad and how they kind of meld together and finding joy. I feel like this might sound strange, and I feel like when I think of joy, like true joy, I feel like it if and this might be controversial. This might be, I might be getting it off for a lot of people. I don't really know. But like when we talked earlier about how like that something fulfilling is more fulfilling when you have had to kind of push that finish line back or like reach farther. I've always
Hmm.
found like there's a difference between happiness and joy for me. Like happiness is like I'm so
Hmm.
happy in this moment, but like true joy is like for me like, and it might be just a schematics thing of like the term, but like is like from like deep within my core, And I feel like it burns brighter when I have like overcome something and like kind of like reached that like over that hump that I'm able to express more of that joy. And like
Mm.
I don't know, does that make sense? Like the more that I kind of go up and down on these things, I feel like the more I come out the other side, I have more joy to give and more joy to kind
Yeah.
of, I don't know, does that make
No,
sense?
that makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. I also relate to the thing of like happiness is like, oh, this is like I'm happy. I'm experiencing happiness right now. And then for me, in a way, is like joy is something that I can carry with
Mm-hmm.
me in my
Yeah.
chest or like, it's that like glowing
Mm-hmm.
ball that you feed every once in a
Mm-hmm.
while. But it's what I carry with me more throughout the day or throughout my life. So yeah, I agree with that. But I totally like I get like the fulfillment of um like I've worked really hard at this thing and I've experienced these ups and downs, but then I finally have reached this like I feel so joyful right now because I've completed it or I've found some kind of success with this.
I wanna
Does that make sense?
yes, it does. But I kind of want to separate the two ideas. Like it's not like I
Hmm.
feel joy because I find success, but I feel joy as an appreciation that like I have like there's
Oh yeah.
yeah, there's been like this darkness that I've been fighting for
Yes.
so long. And now I've learned how to kind of like combat that darkness and like now I'm just
Yes.
left with this joy. And
No,
it
yes.
okay,
Okay.
yeah.
That
I don't want to say like I
I
feel joyful when I succeed. Like that sounds so
No,
like
no, 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 no.
corporate. Like
I I misunderstood what you were saying, but that makes more sense to
okay,
me.
cool, awesome. I'm glad we figured that out because that sounds so
Yes,
egotistical, and that is not who I am as a
that
person.
feels very
Yeah,
corporate America.
yeah. I'm like I could find my joy in the freaking woods. Like get me. Like I don't need to achieve
Yeah,
anything. I just need to kind of achieve that within myself. Yeah, which I think kind of segues to a different kind of question that I wanted to ask you, which is like as we talk about like joy and that happiness, like where do you find that joy, that happiness, or like hope and beauty in your world today? Like where do you foster that? When you need it, where are you looking for it? Because that is sort of one of the reasons why I started this was to like help others understand that as well as share like what other people are doing because I think it's important. Don't hog the
yeah,
happiness pipelines, share
yeah.
them.
I think genuinely like a good chunk of the joy that I find throughout my day is going to school and working with the kids that I work with. Hey, middle schoolers can be freaking hilarious sometimes.
Yeah.
Like genuinely some of the funniest people that I know, and sometimes they don't even know that they're doing it. And like there's just moments, and it happens almost daily, where I'm like, they say something or they make a joke or, there's just a funny interaction. I'm like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually why I'm here. Like that's why I continue to do what I do. And then there's also like on the same, thinking, there's also parts about working with kids specifically where they figure out something or they discover something for the first time and relaying that information or having that information finally like make sense to them is one of the most like I don't know euphoric experiences that the human being like I don't know for me specifically, I feel like that's awesome. Like when I'm working with my kids, when I'm working with my specific kiddo who I do SDI for, and she gets to the point where she remembers uh I don't want to give too much away, but like she has a struggle with reading and she is dyslexic and so like when she has gotten to the point where she remembers the difference between B and D, and that's awesome. Like and seeing that and trying to foster that like sense of pride, like yes, you have figured this out, and I love that we have gotten to the point that we can move on. We don't need B's and D, charts or whatever anymore. Like we've got it. like that was awesome. And that happened at the beginning of January when we had come back from break, and like starting the year off like that was awesome. Like that was just so fun for me, was like seeing the progress that we've made over the last, like over the months that we've worked together. Like that was just, I jumped out of my chair. I was like so excited because I was just like, yes, you've got it. Like you get this. And so like, continuing that progress with her specifically has been a source of like joy for me. And there's definitely hard days. Like there's days, and then, we have to we have to backtrack a little bit, but then we move forward again. And so like that's great. But also, just being there and like watching like these silly little things that happen. Um, Also something that I did kind of selfishly for myself, but also wanting to provide a service for the kids again, is I started a cooking club. And so we do that every Wednesday. And so cooking club is just a huge form of joy for me. I look forward to it every week because I get to do something that I enjoy, which is cooking. I get to teach something that I enjoy because I think it's an important skill for the kids to learn. And then I also just get to pal around with like six kids that are choosing to be there on a Wednesday afternoon and eat free food, because like who doesn't want to do that? So like um that's been a source of like, selfish, but also like it's providing a service. And but so that's another way that I have discovered joy, or like created joy for myself, um, is doing that. And then another thing is just like I and I've been really bad about it, but I'm endeavoring to be better, is to just reach out to the people that I love and enjoy and spend time with, and you know set up, like make it a point to set up time to spend with them. Like last weekend, my coworker, who's also one of my really good friends now, she came over with her daughter and we taught her how to crochet.
Oh,
And so like being very intentional about what this is about, and like, making that time. And so then we also just got to chat, and like, so that's pretty much. And then it also just helps that I live with my best friend and we can make each other laugh, and we can also be there to support each other when we need to. Um, and like, I obviously know that not everybody gets the opportunity or has the opportunity to do that, but if you can create space for the people that you love, or want to make space for inviting people into that role, I highly recommend it, because I think that's just the only way that a lot of us, like a good most of us being just the human population in general, are going to survive. That's just my philosophy about that, is making sure that you have people around you that are there to support you and to make sure that you're doing good, and then you can do that back for somebody else.
I mean, like that is also kind of another reason why this whole shindig got started was because historically humans have always kind of existed in a communal space, and like it
Hmm.
takes a village to raise children. Like we've always said that, and it's only been kind of in recent, past couple of centuries where that's kind of dissolved. Especially, well, and
Yes.
it's not dissolved everywhere, but definitely in sort of the westernized world, and especially in the U.S. that it has
Hmm.
been, which is really sad, and
Hmm.
why there's um I have no background in psychology, but like I would presume that's where a lot of mental health crises are coming from, is a lack of support and a lack of community from,
Yes.
your group, your unit. And we're spread
Yep.
out, and we're not as centralized anymore, and it's really hard to make that time, especially if you weren't raised or exposed to that. And like I've talked about it a little bit, but like that notion of intentional community isn't something that I grew up with. I mean, my parents, like we had our friends and things like that, but like we were a familial unit, but and we were a big
Hmm.
family. But like once like everybody kind of got up and moved away, like the dynamic shifted and we didn't have a central community around. So I think it's really important. And I kind of agree with you where as an adult now trying to make that space and make that time to spend time with the people that I care about, whether it's a call like this or whether it's,
Hmm.
having designated times blocked out in my week to make sure that I'm giving people
Yeah.
that time and having intentional, like kind, nurturing time with those people. So, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I have also read about like this whole like there's this weird thing that's happened over the last like century and a half or whatever, that we've spread out from being, communities based around like we're all here to help each other to nuclear family units that are here and we're going to be separate from the entire, like this is us and you cannot come in. And I just have such a hard time with that because it does take multiple people to be in the lives of, others, whether that's people that do have children or don't have children. It's something that needs to be like it needs to happen. And I keep I keep having this conversation with, people that I'm friends with that have kids, like Matt and Melissa, or my coworker Anna. um like I offer to give their kids rides like all the time because it's no sweat off my back and you're busy. You are literally their parent. So like, please let me help you. Please let me provide this kind of support or service for you because, it does take a lot. Like you're raising a human being and you don't have to do it by yourself. And so I have to keep reminding them, like, you don't have to apologize or like, you don't have to beg like on your hands and knees for me to help you out. I want to help you out. Like that's just, I don't know if it's just the empathy or like, of just being a very like empathetic person or a person that's very aware of social weirdness, but like
Dynamics.
um dynamics, yeah, social
Yeah.
dynamics. I was just like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Um, but like it's not it doesn't feel like a burden because it just should be something that we just do for each
Well,
other. That's just my
well, I feel
philosophy.
like because it's like how like humans function, like it's how humans should function. It's how all primates function. Like there, you never see
Hmm.
another group of primates that are like mother, father, baby, like off to the side. Like they are a group. They're a community. Like we are the. I feel like the only. I might be wrong, but the only species where it's all kind of like split up like that.
Hmm.
And it's not, I mean, it's not healthy, like we talked about that. And so like I'm wondering, and because I feel this way sometimes, is the fact that like that switch is flipped, like like this is how I feel like it should function. And it's like it's like truly true to the species and true to human nature to want to function that way. And because you're wanting to function that way, like it feels more natural because it's like what like we should be doing. There's a reason why.
Hmm.
Like, does that make sense? Yeah,
Yeah.
like just it just feels
Yeah.
more now once you've kind of leaned into it and it's like clicked. It's like, oh, this is what needs to be done. Like
Hmm.
this is more natural. This is what should be done. Um and oh, I forgot what I was gonna say. It was going off of that. Um Dang it. I'll
Dang
think
it.
about it in a second. But it was in regards to nuclear family. Oh, I remember. And it is and it is that like I know we joke about and like I've joked with Kelsey about and I've joked with Eric about like starting a commune and like living on
Yes,
a
I was
commune.
just about to
And
say
like I
that.
know people like think it's like hippy dippy stuff and like whatever, but I'm like, this is how like humans have functioned. Like what you call a commune was called like a community 200, 300,
Hmm.
400 years ago. It's just we have just been industrialized and like taught to buy things instead of like growing it our own and sharing with others. Like
Yep.
give me a barter and trade system. Like that sounds great. Like and it's so interesting that like that has
Hmm.
been now like somehow like pushed down and like looked down upon and it's like such it's how humans have existed for thousands of years. Like
Yes.
why are you dog talking it? So anyways.
I have lots of thoughts about this, but um like for example, for me, like I want kids. Like I want to have my own kids and I want to raise them. But Molly, bestie, doesn't want children. However, she's like, I will be their aunt and I will be involved in
Hmm.
rearing your
Yeah.
children. And I'm just like, no, like that's fine. Like obviously there's another component of, my partner who does have a
Yeah.
say in that,
Yeah.
obviously. But like she's like, I don't want kids of my own, but I know that I want to be able to help raise your children. And that's kind of what we're doing right now for our other friend, Chloe, because he's gonna be 2 on
Oh.
Sunday. But like her son, like we're his aunts. We're not biologically related, we're his aunts. And, we I've told her multiple times, like, if you need the weekend off, and you feel comfortable, we will take Theo. Like we'll take him and he'll spend the night and we'll go do stuff and we'll do auntie things with him. And maybe that's also just part of the way that I was raised too, because like my mom has 2 sisters. And so like on my mom's side of the family, I had 2 aunts that I could go spend the weekend with, and um that's how I was raised. Like I did a lot of stuff with my aunts when I was a kid, and I still do as I got older. And my aunts are very important figures in my life because they provided a different kind of teaching and a different kind of parenting than my actual parents did. And I've learned a lot from, I have 3 aunts on my mom's side. My mom's middle sister, my mom's youngest sister, and my mom's youngest sister's partner. And you know, Mandy's not biologically related to me, but she's also taught me a lot about everything, about a lot of stuff, um, because I've known her my entire life. And so my aunts are very important to me. And I have an uncle, and I have 2 uncles, and they're also very important to me. I just don't, I haven't spent a lot of time with them. It wasn't, that wasn't a part of my upbringing. So I want to also mention like uncles are important too. Male figures are important too, but like specifically my aunts are very, very important to me. And so I think that that's also probably why I have this whole idea of like community is important for raising new adults or new humans because like you can get a bunch of different things from different people. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
yeah.
also just want to kind of extend past that too, because like yes, like kids are it is essential for kids to have a different variety of adults to kind of, look towards as role models, but also just as us as adults. It's also
Oh
important.
yeah.
It is so important to have that community close by and to feel supported by the community. Even
Hmm.
if like I don't have kids, um, just to have like people that I'm close to
Yeah.
around. Like Chelsea and I have always joked that like we always want to have like a conjoined house. Like that's like
Hmm.
eventually that's just how we want to live. And luckily, like Zach, her husband, like he was our friend for a long time before they started dating. And so it was just like the three of us hanging out. So he kind of knew what he was getting into before he started dating Chelsea, that it was
Hmm.
like just the two of us were really close. We wanted to commune together. We wanted to live close by. Like that was sort of a package deal.
Package deal.
And so now the joke is that like my partner has to be best friends with Zach, otherwise they're gonna have a really bad
Hmm.
time. But but it's just because like I like the people in my life, like I couldn't imagine like not being near them. It's like really hard now that I'm older and all my friends are spread out around the country and I can't see them all the time. And like I can't see you, and then Abby's down in Florida, but in my dream world, everybody would be in one place and have
Yeah.
one house or one piece of property, and we all share it. And but
Hmm.
it is really important to have those people close by. But if you can't have them close
Yeah.
by, taking that intentional time, taking
Yeah.
those moments wherever you can, like on your drive home from work. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can hear you.
Something weird just happened. That was weird. Um, I'm gonna carry on the drive home from work, being able to have those moments of intentionality with the people that you care about, and
Yeah.
fostering that. It's important.
Yeah. Another thing that I was thinking about when you were talking is also having people in your life that are of different age groups
Oh,
too, right? So
100%. Yeah.
because they offer different things
Mhm.
for you. So like I'm in my 20s. I have a lot of people that I'm friends with that are in my 20s. But then I also have like people that I talk to and communicate with on a regular basis that are in their
Mhm.
40s and they are parents and they have, 20 years more life experience than I
Mhm.
do. And so and then being able to talk to them about like what does this mean, and then we also have like Eric and Abby who are in their 30s, and so there's like it's important to have people in different age groups of people that are friends that are in
Mhm.
different age groups because they offer different perspective, they offer different life
Mhm.
experience, and I just they can also do like they can fill different roles, and so I think it's important for to branch out. Like, don't just be friends with 20-year-olds because sometimes 20-year-olds suck. like, like sometimes we're very, very hard to deal with.
Well, I want to kind of extend past that because this was something that at the ACA conference last year, I went to a class, for lack of a better term, on, and I can't remember if it was directly DEIB, but it was about diversity. And in the sense of like, it wasn't talking about like, these are like what to look like. I don't know. It was very different than a diversity class that I had previously experienced because I feel like a lot of diversity trainings and things are just like to check off a legal box, but it's not like exploring the reasons why. But
Mhm.
this one was about like the woman who was teaching it, and I cannot remember her name. She asked us on a sheet of paper, there was like 10 slots, and she was like, on this sheet of paper, write down 10 people that you are the closest to in your life, outside of your family. Like they cannot be related to you, 10 people that you think are the closest to you in your life. On the other side of the paper, she said, okay, write down the names of the 10 people that are your closest to at your workplace. And then she went through and there was columns, but they weren't labeled. And she was like, okay, on the first column, write down what their political leanings are. And the next column, write down their age. And the next column, write down if they're married, write down if they have kids, write down their ethnicity, write down their race. And then when it all pulled away, she's like at the bottom, then fill out all that information for you, and then compare your demographics to the people that you are closest to.
Hmm.
And the point of the exercise was to say, like, people gravitate towards people that have similar demographics as them. That is natural.
Mhm.
But what's important for growth, and especially in the camp space and being able to connect with people, is getting other people's perspectives and getting other people's, just like all these demographics, I think are really important and really poignant to be able to just understand people more and to be able to relate
Mm.
to more people. And especially when you're working with kids, you want to be able to relate to all of your kids, not just the kids that reflect, who you are. And
Yep.
it was very targeted and very poignant for me because I like had never kind of like put it into that perspective. But I think that is so important that if I want to grow as a person, if I want to have, widen my opinions and my thoughts and my feelings on things, like I need to be like, I feel like we both say that we're open-minded, but this was a very much something that was like, oh, I need to really make an effort to kind of open up these spaces. And it was just really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that you did that.
Mm.
Um, for those that are listening, Sarah and I went to the same
Mm.
conference,
Yes, we did.
but I didn't know that you had done that. But I think that's awesome, and I think that I would be very interested to do that either at school with the
Mm.
teachers, like my coworkers at school, or do that as like a camp
Yeah.
thing at the beginning of the summer.
Mm.
Um, but that's a
Yeah.
separate.
It was a really nice
But
reflection exercise. So just real quick, going off of the sort of pinpoint decisions that ended up kind of exploding in our lives, and things that we didn't think that were going to be monumental ended up being monumental, and things like that. Knowing what you know now and knowing how those decisions and trajectories have changed for you, if you could like go back to your younger self, whether teenage Emma or little baby Emma, or Emma when Emma was 20 before Emma started working at camp, and you could like tell yourself
yeah,
just like one specific thing, whether it's like just like a sense of like peace, or whether it's like gear up, this is going to happen, like fair warning, like what would you want to say to your younger self? Or yeah.
Um, I think I'm gonna I'm gonna start with the first one that just came to mind, and then maybe there will be a couple others. But the first one that came to mind was the Emma that was experiencing moving in between her seventh and eighth grade year of school. And the reason why I would go to that is because I had spent from kindergarten up until like up kindergarten through seventh grade at this school with these people that I had grown up with and I was like really close with, and um I just I had known them pretty much my entire life. And so moving, I was angry, I was sad, I was not excited to step into a different universe than I had previously had. And so like I was very scared to do that. And if we're honest, and if I'm, being candid, my high school experience was not great. It wasn't terrible. It was just not the best. I have one friend that I talk to still from high school, and so I didn't get a chance to make really, strong connections with the people that I went to high school with. And so I going going from high school to college, I again had that like fear of, well, is anybody gonna like me? Is anybody gonna want to be friends with me? And da 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 da. And now, knowing what I know now, I would say to her, like, you just need to wait for a few years, and it's gonna suck, and it's gonna be fine. And there are gonna be moments that are gonna suck, and there are moments that are like, this is fine, and like they're all important experiences to have. But wait until you get to college and meet the people that you were supposed to meet. And the people that I was supposed to meet are my best friends ever. We have done so much together. We have, we've laughed, we've cried. The people that I met in college are some of the most important people that I have now in my life. And also wait again to meet the people that you were supposed to meet at camp. Because after meeting you, Sarah, and after meeting Matt and Henry and Trout, like these are people that I know that I was supposed to have in my life. And yes, I had to sit through some of the suck for a few years, but I wouldn't change it. But if I could go back and tell my younger self, I would be just like, you know what? It's going to be okay. Like you are going to find people that are important and will be in your life for the rest of time. So like that's one that I would definitely pinpoint.
Can I interject just real quick?
Yeah.
Because I had this memory. It's a really sweet memory as you were talking about this. And it was Matt, it was our second summer, so 2022. You had been sick. So we had started training, but you were a couple of days late. Like I think you got there that
Oh,
Wednesday or
yes.
Thursday. And so Matt was in the middle of talking about how important camp is and how camp like like is so nice because when people see their friends at school they see them every day, so like those connections, like they're not as intense as like that joy of when it's the first day of camp and you see somebody again that you haven't seen in a year, and that excitement. And as he's saying that, Emma walks into the gym, and I hadn't seen Emma in a year. And I sprinted into her arms and jumped. I jumped. I
Yeah.
leapt because I was so. And
Left.
Emma caught me, and so she's just like holding me. And Matt was like that. He's like, that's what happened. So I
Yeah.
just bring that up because I'm so grateful that I met you too, and I couldn't imagine my life without you now, and I just love
Yeah.
you very much. So
I love you very much too. Funny little story, funny little bit on my side of this. So going back to like, being in a dissociative state. I was still in a dissociative, like depressive state when I walked into the gym. So I had to remind my brain that this was real and this was happening multiple times. And also when Sarah leapt into my arms, she knocked my jaw to the side. And so my neck was in so much
I'm
pain.
sorry.
But I was no, no, no. It's fine because that also helped me like ground myself in a really weird way to know that like ow. But I was like so excited and so happy to see her again, so I didn't care.
I didn't realize I
So I
knocked your
don't think I've
jaw.
ever
I'm sorry.
no, no, it's okay. It's okay because I knew that you were just so excited and I was like, this is fine. I'm actually okay. It hurt for like 2 seconds and that was fine.
Okay.
But no, I remember, and I think about that moment quite a bit sometimes, especially if we're not, working together. I'll just remember, Sarah loves me because she ran and sprinted into my arms and I caught her. Um, no, but yeah, so like there are there are moments where I have to remind myself that like I'm not doing something alone. Like I'm not living life alone. Um, there are people that are here to, support me and be there for me. And that's just something that I have to remind myself, especially if I'm like in a really hard situation. Um, so, but yeah, that's definitely one of the moments that I would like, or one of the points in my life where I'd go back and like, um, tell myself something. And this one's funny. The other moment in my life I'd tell is like preteen Emma, where she's having a really hard time with her brother, who I love very much. And I'd be like, he's gonna be fine. And your relationship with him is going to be actually very important and significant to you. He's going to be a pain in the butt for a really long time, and he still is. But you are now his best friend, and that's definitely something that I would tell my younger self too. Is like he considers you to be his best friend and he will just yap your ear off about everything, whether you want to hear it or not. And so that's something that I would remind her about. It's just to be there and to be supportive of her brother.
Yeah, I feel like as I've grown up, my relationship with my siblings definitely has changed for the positive. And yeah, I understand that.
So
We are just, we've been on the phone now for 3 hours.
yeah.
So I'm gonna say that it's about time to close out. But before we leave,
No,
is
it's
there
okay.
anything else that you kind of want to tell our listeners or like leave them with?
Um, I guess my like the thing that I would kind of put out is there's a few things that I would want to say. Um, Number one is going back to like making sure that you find your joy. Whether and it does not have to be like this monumental thing that you discover every single day. It can literally be like a funny meme or like something you did was like kind of stupid but also funny. Like it can be anything. It could be something so small, but it should be something that reminds you that um there are good parts of life. That's just something that I think is really important to continue to take away. I think that specifically for where we are right now in, the world, there's a lot of crap happening. But if you can try to find something that kind of takes it away for a little bit, I think that is so important because we are bombarded constantly with negative. Um, so I think the other thing too is I I want to encourage people to do something that they normally wouldn't do, or take a step of like I'm very fearful of this thing, but I know that I might get some enjoyment out of it, or it might completely ruin, well, not ruin, but like it might completely like be a total fail. but just, I don't know, take a leap. I don't know where I'm going with that, but like just take a leap. Do something that, doesn't is out of the norm for you. Um, and then the last thing I say is like tell you the people that you love them. Um, because it's important to hear it. And I think that every once in a while everybody needs to know that they're loved. Um, so I don't know. It's all cheesy. All of that's so cheesy, but I think it's important and
I mean, those
I
are
I
the
stand by it.
I mean, those are, I feel like, the main topics that we covered today, like, as well. So I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's a nice, honestly, recap of like what we've discussed. Find your happiness, take risks, take leaps, don't stare at the figs, don't let them wither, and just love your people.
Love your
Yeah,
people.
love your people.
Love your people and tell your people that you love them.
Mhm. I love you.
I love you.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I think this is a kind of silly episode because we only took about two like stops. So it's just gonna be a really easy one to edit. Um but Emma, if our listeners want to find you, where can they find you?
You can find me on MDI. No, I'm just kidding. Just look for just I'll be in the woods somewhere.
Yeah.
No, I'm on Instagram. It's Emma. It's underscore Emma 0805, I think. I'm also, I mean, I don't post on TikTok, but I'm on TikTok. I'm not gonna give you my TikTok actually. Um,
Some things are
yeah,
just for you.
yeah, some things are just for me, but yeah, my Instagram is it's underscore Emma a 0805. Um, yeah, I really hope that, you know, this this particular episode, I mean, every episode, I think I've listened to all of them so far. I think all of them have their own message, and I hope that somebody can find or resonate with the message that we've shared today. So, yeah.
Yeah, I hope so too. I hope so with all of them.
Yep.
That's it doesn't have to be for everybody to relate to, but if one person
Yeah.
relates to it, we're doing
Yeah.
something.
And I think, I don't know, I'm just going to say this because I want to, but I think you're doing a really cool thing. When you first proposed this to me, I was immediately overjoyed and on board because I think that this is awesome. I love the concept so much. And so I'm so proud of you.
Thanks. Honestly, it was just kind of an excuse to, you know, let my friends talk more about themselves and to listen to
Yeah.
those stories. And I think because I don't know, I enjoy it and I miss my friends, and it's helped me out too because I'm far removed from a lot of people now, and it's about that dedicated time with somebody. And yeah, it's under the guise of a podcast and stuff and like all everything that comes with it. But if I'm going to have a dedicated time with some people, and I know I really value the conversations that I have with these people, I want to share that if they're open to sharing that. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
No, I think it's great. And I'm a D1 yapper, so this is like
Yeah,
great
it
for
was
me.
great. You're an amazing guest. Um, you can find us at Beauty and Being Podcast on Instagram. We do have a Facebook page. However, I feel bad. I have not updated it ever. And I know y'all are following me on that. And so I'm so sorry. I'll get better. I just don't use Facebook. I forget it's there. If you want to follow my personal Instagram, it's S_Callahan98. That's spelled CALLAHAN. You know how it's spelled. You probably know me. It's also the name of the podcast. Anyways, Emma, thank you for joining us today. I love you, and I had a lot of fun today. So thank you for
I'm
yapping my ear off.
so happy to be here anytime.
We'll see y'all next week. Thank you so much.